California. With me, you know her as the one and only goalkeeper coach for UCLA, Saskia Weber. Look, I just decided to shorten it for today because you got the UCLA hat on.
Got the
Angel City shirt, co-owner for Angel City, 99 World Cup winner. You know who it is. Just welcome. You're like, just move on to the guest. Joining us today, guys, we have Houston Dash goalkeeper coach Brenton Saylor. Brenton, what's up, man? This is exciting, man. You know, one thing that's always really humbling for us is that whenever we find out that, you know, coaches, professional coaches, you know, watch the show, listen to the show, benefit from the show, you know, it makes us feel all good inside, and also makes us feel like we are doing something to contribute to the goalkeeping community. So thank you for being a listener. Appreciate it.
Oh, no, you're welcome. I enjoy you guys, and you bring personality to it, which is fun, and it's not always monotone, and, you know, it's really, really good the way you guys go about it. So.
Yeah, it might not be as funny today because we can't make fun of Omar the whole hour.
But Omar just walks into those things. So we can make fun of him while he's not here. The reason Omar's not there right now is because, guys, you can check out that great premium content on Pro GK Academy. Right now, he's doing 17-hour breakdowns of the entire weekend of the English Premier League. For the 7 people that want that, it's going to be fantastic content. No. It's good stuff, guys, and we appreciate all the hard work that Omar does for the goalkeeping community. Guys, today's topic is going to be a really big one because a lot of people here have been discussing this in regards to, I don't have access to field players. You know, I've got different types of levels of goalkeepers in my sessions. Everyone's talking about game realism right now. You know, how do I make this still happen? Which is a fantastic topic. And kind of before we kind of get into that, which was broached, by the way, by Brenton. Brenton, for some of the people out there who might not be familiar with kind of, you know, who you are and, you know, what you do with Houston Dash and with the youth program and everything, why don't you kind of give a little synopsis?
Yeah, so I'm the goalkeeper coach for the Houston Dash. I've been with them now 2 seasons, or whatever you want to call this past year, with the fall series and the Challenge Cup. We'll combine it into one. But been with the Dash for 2 years now. I've been with the Houston Dynamo Academy for, I want to say, 3.5 years now. So time flies. And then I was in the college game actually for 11 years before that. So been in a couple different platforms, but really happy where I'm with now, and with great coaches and great people and great players, and really enjoying it. So,
you know, one of the great things though is, like, you know, with your accent and, you know, and your appearance and everything like that, I'm sure people come up to you and they're like, oh, you were coaching in college. They're like, what SEC football team were you working with? You know, so it's like,
I didn't get that.
I do. Maybe I'm just used to, you know, like that, the kind of like the all-American look when it comes to college football and everything like that. And I was just literally waiting for Brenton to just be like, by the way, guys, I've been putting on this accent the whole time. I'm actually from like Liverpool or something like that, you know?
No, I'm actually a farm boy from Lincoln, Illinois. I work with a lot of different accents, but no, from Farmville, really. And then I just keep working my way south and have ended up in Houston, Texas. So.
That's awesome, man. So let's kind of broach into this kind of topic right now, because you've brought together some fantastic little session designs and everything like that to share with everybody. And kind of basically, before we kind of get into it and everything like that, you know, maybe there's some parents out there who don't know what we're talking about. They might hear these different topics or, you know, terms all the time on the field. You know, Brenton, in your own words, what is a realistic game scenario?
Yeah, I think I can break it up even further. So a game scenario is one where we're able to work on something within the theme of a training session, but there's multiple decisions involved. So I think when you go into a technical activity, the tactical decision's already been made for you. So for example, let's just say we're working on a tight collapse dive to the left side. Okay. It's pretty much rehearsed, you know, building up to that. The goalkeeper knows, okay, this is where the service is going to be. It's going to be to their left-hand side. That's the decision. I know my footwork needs to take me into that position and take it. Now, when we go into game-based training, the shot might be angled, so it could go left or right. So there's a technical and tactical decision. Your positioning. How far do I want to be into the goal? Do I want to create depth? Do I want to close down even further based on the touch of the striker? Now we're getting into game-based training, because there's more than one tactical decision to make, or at least that's how I break it down. Hopefully that's a simplified version, but.
I love what
No,
you said right
absolutely.
there. And I think, Saskia and I, we've discussed this before in the past in regards to what you were saying is like when you're just doing a technical activity, that decision making a lot of times, and I'm not saying, maybe necessarily coaches here on this panel right now, but a lot of coaches, they take that decision making out of the session and they spoon feed, right, Saskia, like that decision on what the goalkeeper does in that moment.
Right. And there's a time and a place for everything. So there's a time and a place for, like you said, like a tight collapse dive to the left and like doing it repetitively and getting footwork down, making sure like, two hands are going to the ball, like how their steps are, like stuff like that. And there's a time and a place for that. That's technical training. And all goalkeepers, so anybody watching, don't get it wrong. Like, well, everything should be game realistic. No, you gotta like, just like any basketball player goes and takes a bunch of free throws, you gotta practice kind of those technical points, but then moving into a game realistic scenario, like just said, like then applying it. So not everything should it's not one way or the other.
No, yeah. And I'll preface this by saying it's something I still haven't mastered, and
absolutely.
I think it even depends on the goalkeeper you're working with. What's really interesting between the youth goalkeepers and the dash goalkeepers who are a little bit older, it's funny because the younger guys in the youth academy, they're used to this more game-based model where there's a lot more game implemented training, right, rather than technical work. So they're actually more comfortable with that. And that's kind of what they're growing up in. So they like to move on a lot faster, where it's funny, if I did that with the dash goalkeepers, I would be able to feel the voodoo doll at night. They'd be angry with me. They want that progression. So even within the ages, this is an interesting topic and the way and the direction training is going, what the goalkeepers are comfortable with. So I think a lot of it even depends on the goalkeeper, where they're at in their career, where they're at in their age, and how they've even grown up training. But
yeah, and I think that like I see the same thing with youth goalkeeper, but then with like the UCLA goalkeepers and stuff like. But I need, like, I guess for me, we do so much game realistic training. We're always we're with the team 90% of the time. The goalkeepers always start with me and stuff like that. But I need to take that time to, I don't like the term spoon feed, Mike. Okay. I need to take the time to do some repetitive technical stuff to break some bad habits. And because we can try to do it, but we all know game scenarios. I'm not guaranteed it's going to come up all the time. You know what I mean? And so if I, over the course of a week, keep seeing a repetitive bad habit in a game scenario, I need to address that the following week or something in private technical training to say, look, you keep doing this. Your weight's on your heels in this scenario, and kind of recreating the game scenario within a controlled environment.
Yeah.
Saskia, you brought up a really good point in regards to that. And then that is the fact is that like a lot of youth coaches out there, especially during this quarantine time, Brenton, and I know we've spoken about this, is that they've been watching all these different, the Southampton Academy, how they run their session or whatever. And they go, oh, cool. Well, I'm going to do that with my, my club, here in Iowa, where I've got, a 14-year-old, a 9-year-old and a 19-year-old, all in the exact same session of all different varying ability levels. And
I'm just kid who's never played before, who just has to step in this weekend that the field player coach sent to me. And it's like, hey, can you teach him how to play keeper? He said, play this weekend. Okay.
And I'm just describing, and that's an average youth goalkeeper club session a lot of the times, right, Brenton?
Yeah, absolutely.
I always just say, I send him back. I'm like, I'm not teaching him anything. Just tell him to keep the ball out of net.
But that is the difficult thing. And we had some people in the comment section actually on one of the group threads, and they were saying, they're like, hey, it's great when you guys have these pro coaches on and they say, well, you got to keep a game scenario and game realistic and everything like that. And then they explain that situation right there. And they go, how can I use that 9-year-old as a field player against a 19-year-old? It's not real. It's not realistic. So Brenton, how do we adjust this?
I think distances and even service are a huge way. I mean, you can do technical work and still make it relatable to the game and going into that game-based scenario. So, for example, if you're talking about the goalkeepers winning free balls played in behind that space, Well, if it's tight to goal, I mean, how often is that really going to happen that they're going to be able to run onto a free ball, 2 or 3 yards that's played in behind if you set your line or that restraining line right in front of the goal? So now we're getting away from the game-like part, or if we're talking about crosses, and this, you're talking about flank play and the service is from 10 yards from the ground. Well, now that's a cutback. So it doesn't necessarily relate to the aspect of the game that you want. So I think in the technical part, it still has to relate to the game, and you can do that through distances and service, and then tie that into multiple decision making. But if you're talking about, let's just say, tight collapse diving again on the ground, left to right, and you're serving a volley, well, that's not what you want from that technical aspect relating into the game. So you can still make it game-like in the technical training through your service and distances, but those are huge things to think about leading in and progressing your session.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I never even really thought about that. Susky, obviously, you spent some time in the youth club game before you moved on, to the college system, and obviously there's a big difference in regards to not just the quality, but also the type of way that your training sessions are set up. Is that something that you kind of worked with when you were in the youth club setting?
Yeah, I mean, you find there that you have such a different level. Like, you'll have 5 different teams training, 4 different teams training on the field or in the field space at one time, and then I get all the goalkeepers, and they're all different age groups, and and we try to make it so their skill levels are different. But again, yes, it can be, you can adapt it in a sense. I think what's weird, I was thinking about it, was the whole COVID thing and the distancing that, and I'm sure you had to deal with this. It kind of lays into that in a sense that there is no contact, or that's slowly changing, but there was no contact. So even like training like a through ball or something like that, like the decision making still has to be there, and the person playing forward can't collide with the goalkeeper, they can't do anything. So there is that sense of, all right, so still make the right decisions and follow through with it. So if you have those younger kids, you can still set up a situation like that, where they're putting the pressure on, but there is no collision. There is no this. You're not asking a 9-year-old to dribble a 19-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, sure. But at least put the pressure in that space, so the decision has to be made. Mm-hmm. And there are ways to work through that.
Yeah,
agreed.
You brought up a good point in regards to that. And Brenton, I want to ask you this in regards to, so if you're in a scenario like this, let's just say, I don't know why I threw this 9. I don't know what club has the 9 and 19-year-old training at the same time. that might be a safety issue right there, unless that 9-year-old came with that 19-year-old, which has happened before. Yeah. But what about saying, okay, instead of we're going to do realistic game scenarios with the players that I have to my availability, we're going to do a technical training session, and then we're going to do more of a lecture style, more conceptual, showing different types of scenarios and throwing different players in for the demos. Is that something that you think might be productive?
Yeah, I think it could be, because it provides a different picture. So sometimes the foot's always on the gas, especially in the youth sessions where we're flying to get them through, and I got 30 minutes and I got to get them into the field player session, and we have to do this and cover this and this and this. Sometimes it's okay just to take your foot off the pedal and say, look, we're going to do something a little different tonight. We're just going to walk through some things. If you're going to do that, I think you have to have an engaging personality, and you have to be able to keep it fun. And maybe a good way to go about that is, okay, we do a demo using the goalkeepers, and now we take a step back and walk through it. So now they've been involved a little bit. They know what you're talking about because they've been in the situation. Now we can back up and actually walk them through it. And it's a great way to involve kids of all ages, because now, if they're younger, you can take care of the service, so it's meaningful and makes sense to them. If it's older, you can still do the service, but now they've done a demo, they've walked through it. Now they can all relate to that particular situation for their age. And now we're taking a step back and walking through it. And it might be a case of the 19-year-old can play a little bit higher off their line because they're taller. The 9-year-old might have to drop a little deeper, but now they've all been in that situation. You can walk it through for their age.
Yeah. I think that's awesome the way you just described that right there. Now you had some session examples that you wanted to kind of show us, and I want to start kind of with the youth level, so you kind of walk us through what you kind of mean by what you're showing right here. I made you a host right here, so you should be able to share your screen or do you want me to do it? So
No, I can do it. Maybe.
Okay. Maybe.
We had that technical conversation earlier.
If I leave you for a second, I apologize.
No worries. Just share screen.
There we go. So
all right,
we're getting there.
All right.
All right. And then where share screen? I'm looking for, there we go.
Yeah. And click on that button. Yep. There you go. Has started sharing. Perfect.
Better than me. It's a good thing that's what popped up.
Can everybody see this?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, this is our younger guys. I want to say that this is 12 and 13-year-olds. Yep. So essentially how they've started, the goalkeeper and silver are gray at the end.
So right now we can
wait,
only,
you
right now we
click
can
on
only,
it.
yeah, you got to click on it.
Can you see it?
No, I think you shared just the clips for
home
sharing portion.
Hold on, we'll get
the
it.
wrong
Let's
screen.
see.
Yeah. So click on it. And it should be opening up.
Are you seeing it now?
Maybe
No.
hit play.
Let's see. It's playing on mine.
Okay, so you shared the wrong screen. So end screen
go.
and share, yeah, and share a different screen. So when you said share screen, there's different options of what you share. I can do it too if you want. All right. All right.
You got it, Michael? You want me to do it?
I'll give it a shot if it's easier for you. Hold on one second. Let me just
I trust you.
All right. let me so which one is it? Which one is it that you want me to open? Session
It should
Academy
be yeah, Academy. Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to open that right now. Okay. All right. So I am going to share that. All right. Okay. Can you see it now? We lost Saskia. Is she there?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Oh, okay.
I'm right here. Sorry.
No worries. Okay. So, all right. Let me turn off the sound here. Okay. So, kind of walk us through what's going on here.
Yeah, so the premise is the goalkeeper at the far end can play to the player on the mannequin right in front. So that actually serves as the six. So they're playing out of the back now, and then they get it back and they can look to play through. So now it's an angled shot stop for the keeper. So now they have to decide how much they want to close down. He improvised there, used his feet.
Yeah, that's a brave one right there.
But now they have to make the decision how far they want to close down, the angle, do they want to create depth, or if it even gets played through, if they can come and win it. So now we're relating multiple situations to the game. It's not just one technique. There's multiple decisions involved.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, this looks like this. We do functional training with forwards and stuff, the same thing. This looks like a drill I did on Friday, I think. Or Sam actually did for the forwards, and I had the goalkeepers in for UCLA. And it's again, like I agree, the movement to make this as game realistic is to force the keeper to move across the goal and make those decisions, make sure their footwork's right, make sure their decision making, is that a through ball? Can I come get it? Should I stand him up? Should I, do a K save? And it's that constant relocating across the front of your goal that is incredibly important. That doing stagnant drills when you can move on from them is what you need.
Yeah, and if you wanted to progress this, it could start with the keeper playing a clip ball into the other keeper. So now we've related to playing into the 9. Then the other keeper can play into their 6. So now we've added a few different dimensions through distribution. You can look to play through more, or that middle player can look to turn and strike. So now you've tied in various scenarios and various progressions, through distribution and through what you want to get out of that picture, with them going to goal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one thing I want to say about this, Brenton, is that one of the arguments that I'm sure some people will put in the comment section or one of a later email that we enjoy getting is that this looks great. I don't have these kids that are all at that same level. Though the argument I always get is that like an academy environment is artificial in regards to what they experience as a competitive indie youth club, where they have kids that are all different levels, because essentially your field players there, your goalkeepers there,
Yeah,
who
but
are
you're
being used as
using
field
your
players.
feet. You're
Yeah.
1-2 touching and using your feet. So your goalkeepers are training distribution at the same time.
Oh,
Nobody's
for sure.
asking to be messy right there. Like, we're just asking you to move the ball and pass it 1-2 touch, put a through ball in. How is that different than me passing the ball back to you and you have to taking it out wide, or serving the 9, or or something like that, or finding the 8 or the 6?
Oh, I agree. I'm just trying to answer the questions before they start coming. Start coming in.
But that's like saying my kids can't kick the ball. Well, they better be able to. You teach them how. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you never put them in that environment, they're never going to be able to do it. You know,
Exactly.
and I have this problem at times too. We want our sessions to be super clean and super nice and look good for the camera. But sometimes there can be ultimate chaos. And, you know, when we get in the dash session, sometimes there's a few swear words and it's ugly and, you know, it doesn't go to plan, but that's okay as long as they learn from it, you know?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like I've done like, try doing crossing drills, like just simple crossing drills with goalkeepers, and you'll just put your young goalkeeper, put your hand in your hands, because a kid can't hit like a dead ball into the box. You're like, guys, it's just like a goal kick. So what you're telling me is you can't serve the ball, you know? So it might be chaotic, but it's still something they need to work on.
And the difference is maybe with those academy boys, they're at a really good level and we can progress quicker. You know, if kids are learning or you're at a developmental stage, that's okay to stay with it longer. And that's something else I've been guilty of. I want to move on because I have 4 activities and this is what I planned today.
Yeah.
You know, this activity is crap, but I'm still going to move on because that's what I had in the plans. And sometimes you just can't operate that way.
And sometimes you have to go backwards.
Yeah, if you only get to the second phase, that's okay. And I think this is a case for that. You know, their distribution might struggle, the activity might break down for 20 to 30 minutes, but if they start to show progress, that's what you want.
Yeah, totally.
That's one of the biggest mistakes that I made as a younger goalkeeper coach, is that like, well, I'm like, because, you know, after going to all the different license courses and everything, I'm like, well, the federation says I have to move to B now and to C and to D, you know, before the final phase or whatever. And one of the issues that I started having with that is that certain kids were on a certain page and ready to move on. Other kids weren't, Brenton. So what do we do in that situation? Because I know a lot of goalkeeper coaches say, well, you should just move on because you want to coach to your top players, not to your bottom players. You know, do you feel the same way?
To an extent. Lost her. Yeah, I think it depends what environment you're in to a certain extent. Now, with the younger youth level, I think there's a way to cater to multiple different levels, and that's where you have to be clever as a coach. I think when you get to the pro level, you know, you got to sink or swim. This is our top player, and you got to get to that level. And if you don't, you know, it is what it is. We have to make you better to get you there because there's livelihoods on the line, and you know, they're aspiring for big things, and you can't get in the way of that. So that's part of management on my end. But when we get to the youth level, I think you just need to be clever. So, for instance, if we're doing stuff tight to the goal, okay, little Johnny might not be great with his left foot. So how can we utilize that? Well, he might not be accurate yet. So that's actually a great thing for point blank saves because it's not going to be predictable. But you have to put him in the right positions when they're going to goal to utilize that. So, you know, in terms of, okay, if little Johnny's shot stopping isn't great yet, we can move the other players back, change the distances, change the restrictions. Right. So you might have to hit in 2 touches. The other kids get 3. You know, or you might even pull one of the more advanced players to the side and say, look, I need you to play quicker. This has got to be 1-2 touch finishing. While you go to another one and whisper in his ear, okay, you have 3 touches. So you can give different players different restrictions. That's okay. As long as it's mindful to what you're working on and it helps them in that situation, that's perfectly okay.
Yeah, I totally agree. 100% across the board, especially when it comes to the pro level or even like, okay, you're at this level now, you've got to play up. Like, I'm not going to, you know, yes, we have a certain like rhythm that we're on. This is where we want to get with practice and stuff. And, you know, it's time for you to step up and push yourself to get to where the top keeper is. As far as the younger kids go, last time I checked, like if you're stuck on one drill for the whole time, I guess everybody needs it. Like there's not, you know, you all need it. So nobody can tell me that a young goalkeeper, hey, we should move like little Johnny on. you know, like little Johnny needs as much shot stopping as he can get regardless, you know, even if, you know, little Paul, you know, needs extra help. Like it's not going to hurt you, you know, if you stay longer in one drill.
And I think that's where you can also be clever. And let's say that you have the more advanced keeper in goal, say, hey guys, I want to show you something. And then you get in on the service and you increase the speed, or you change the starting position of that more advanced keeper. Okay, now you're going to start at the edge of the 6. I want you dropping into your starting position or setting position. And now you have to make a save. Whereas the other keepers, okay, you start 3 or 4 yards out, you drop into your set position and make the save. So just with quick alterations, I think you can challenge them more. Now they have to cover more space. They have to move quicker and they have to adjust.
Yeah, I mean, when I was with the clubs, like I would take my advanced boys aside, depending on who was in goal, and be like, identify who you're shooting at. And I was like, I need you now. I need this more of a placed ball. I need this. You're not just gunning it. I need this more under control. Challenge yourself. Train the keeper. You know, and everything. You know, don't blow little Johnny into the back of the net. Like, poor Johnny. But like,
Johnny's
poor little Johnny.
Johnny's.
So usually I'm like poor little Mike, but it's okay. But you know what I mean. And I agree with you. Like you can tweak everything.
And I think Saskia said it earlier when she was talking about her player striking crosses, you know, and the distribution. So, you know, one tweak you might make, and I started to do this more with the dash keepers. I should have done it earlier. I did it with the academy guys, and I'm like, duh, this relates. But even if you have a more advanced player who's striking the ball, well, you can use the goal as a frame of reference. So, for example, if we're looking to clip the ball into the 9, okay, now we have to hit that with texture, so the 9 can bring it down or play one touch. Okay, so now you've reduced the pace a little bit for the player in goal, and giving them a chance to make the save, but you're still challenging that elite player. Now they have to put texture and different surfaces on the ball as if it's distribution and they're playing into the attack.
Mm-hmm.
I love what you just said right there. And I actually want to move on right now to this one of the Houston Dash clips right here. So let's see if I can share the screen properly, and let's see, because I want people to kind of see the difference in the picture. Now, one thing that was really interesting, Brenton, is that you said is that it's almost like a generational thing, is in regards to the younger goalkeepers at the academy are much more comfortable training only game scenario because they've kind of grown up in that system. Whereas the dash keepers, 20s, 30s, age group, they've grown up in a, for lack of a better term, traditional isolation type training environment. So that's where they feel comfortable. So you kind of have to manifest an environment that's a hybrid of the two in order to get the most out of these keepers, right?
Yeah, and how I typically structure it, we do activation, introduction, integration, and then execution. So this would be more of the activation, kind of introducing, okay, we're going to do a little shot stopping in 1v1. So now it's predictable, it's rehearsed, they know what's coming, but they can still get the correct movements in before we progress, so they can get comfortable and they can get confidence, which is huge.
Yeah. By the way, I love the fact love the fact on the through ball right there that going down with hands. That's a lost art nowadays, as Saskia and I talk about.
Yeah. And now, yeah.
Don't get me started. That could be a whole podcast.
Oh my gosh, I'm just watching this. So this is still. So is this the next progression right here?
Yeah, so we're still kind of introduction, but it's a smaller space they're protecting now. They still know that it's going to be touched around the mannequin, so it'd either be a free ball or a blocking scenario, but we're still working into it to where there's not a ton of tactical decisions. They can still get comfortable with the techniques.
Yeah. So
and then we progressed it one more. So now some people would disagree with this setup because, okay, now we have too many goals in the middle of the field. They're going to be like, well, that's not game related. But it's still the picture I want to pull out for the game. So where we're going, the keeper plays a pass through the goal, steps through. Then they have to make a 1v1 save for the 2 mini goals from the distribution of the keeper in the big goal. And then the keeper who's in the big goal has to move to get in to position to deal with myself or whoever taking a touch and striking immediately, or it's a 1v1. So now we're still pulling what we want out of the session. We're integrating a few different things, but now they have to make a few more decisions. So it might be angled shot stopping, it might be a 1v1, but we're also getting more reps and more work in with the keeper and the mini goal.
Ooh, I know what the UCLA keepers are doing tomorrow. I'm not ashamed. I'll steal anything.
I like it.
I took a hiatus for 16 years. I'll steal it all.
You know, and that's one at the end there where it'd be easy to move on really quickly. But
Yeah.
if we're not getting what we want from it, we can stay. And then, you know, if the field players are doing 5v5, 7v7, working on playing in behind, that can kind of take over the execution piece for the day.
Yeah, I want to talk about this right now, Brenton, because you know you brought up a really good point in regards to the both of the goalkeepers working, the one on the mini goal, the one on the big goal, the different decisions in regards to where the service is coming from and all of that. And obviously all the service is being done. This is in isolation without the team whatsoever. Even at the professional level, there's just certain things that you just can't replicate in regards to the movement of an actual professional field player, right? In regards to how their hips move, how, the pace that they have, how clean their touches are and everything like that. So is that something that you take into account even at the professional level?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be able to replicate Rachel Daly, Marta, Lynn Williams, the list goes on. But we're trying to at least present the picture.
Come on. I can do Marta. Trust me, I got it. Bring it. Bring it. I got her down. Yeah.
My favorite was like, I
played against Marta. That's how long she's been playing. And I played plenty of balls up out of the back of the net. So
I was honestly just thinking about that like a couple of weeks ago when we had Brittany Wilson on from the Pride, and she was like, it's like, and we have Marta there, and like Saskia goes, it's like, geez, I played against Marta. Like Marta's going to play. I played against
Sinclair. I played against Marta. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have retired.
They're immortal. They're immortal. They're not going to stop.
I'm like, apparently I should still be playing. Nah.
Oh.
That's okay.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, go ahead, Brenton. Sorry. We
No, I was going to say, I'm not going to be able to replicate that. I know that our goalkeepers know that, but at least we're starting to present the picture now. So now they go into training, they're more comfortable. They've seen the picture. Now they can make those adjustments. And it might be a case of we change the distance a little bit as long as it still relates to what we want to get out of it. So now they're having to react a little bit quicker and make it a bit more game-like. And I'll tell you what's interesting with our goalkeeper crew in Houston. We talked about this. We talked about this during the COVID break, and it's something I need to start doing more. But we talk about periodization with the goalkeepers, with the field players, etc. But I think it's something we need to look into with our service as well. So what I mean by that is if you film a session and go back and take a look at the types of service you're using. So for example, if you did 30 volleys and struck 10 balls from the ground and etc. Does that relate to your session topic? So it's something I want to cue in more on. So for example, let's say we're playing Angel City here in 2 years, and one of the trends, yeah, right? Well, let's say they're stud forward, whoever it is at that time is left-footed and likes to hit from inside the gold zone, but likes to hit in swingers. Okay, so within our session that week in the lead up to the game, how many times did I replicate that service? Or how do we get to replicate that service? So that's a big thing I need to focus on going into next season. But I think if we're talking about game scenarios, especially at the higher levels, it's something that we really need to talk about. So we talk about replicating, the Rachel Dailies and the Martas, etc. Well, how can you do that if you're not replicating the type of trends or service those field players are using? So it requires a little bit of research on the goalkeeper coaches end, but it's something I definitely want to get better going into the next season as we talk about game-based scenarios. Well, that's game-based. How else can you prepare your keepers for the game if we're not following the trends that they're going to see? So,
and it's funny that you bring that up, Brenton, because one of the arguments that a lot of people will give at the youth level back in the day, and it's not an argument anymore, is that that works at the pro level and the college level because they can scout and yada yada. Well, nowadays with Huddle, everybody's film's out there. That U11 that you're playing against this weekend, that number 9, his film is out there. You can go and find it. So that's not an excuse anymore, right?
Oh, for sure. And I think even from just watching games, you start to notice trends at any level. So even at the U13 level, where are most of your goals going to be scored from? Probably 12 to 18 yards, off a ball that's played from a cutback or a ball that's played in behind because the defender overran it or whatever. I think at any level you can start to recognize trends. and then imitate those trends within your training environment so the keepers see it. I think what's tough at the youth level, do you train them based on the current trends you're seeing, or do you train them based on what they're going to see in the future? And that's a really tough one that I wrestle with, and I don't know the answer to yet, but I think it's a balance.
I think you just brought up a really good point that actually Saskia and I have discussed that in the past, because a lot of times there is this desire, you know, Saskia, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, to only train, you know, based on getting, because they're watching films of pros, and they're listening to pro coaches like yourselves, and they go like, okay, well, I'm only going to train based on for what their demands are for this weekend. But at the foundational stage, you're trying to develop a goalkeeper for the future. And I think that's one of the problems that a lot of youth coaches, head coaches, need to understand when they're discussing what they want from their goalkeeper coach. You know? So.
No, for sure. It's a tough one.
We're all like, gotcha.
I
mean, I was rhetorical?
No, I was expecting you to like allow. I thought, Saskia, I thought you had something you wanted to add on to that. Onto that. Look, I'm not sure if the dogs are barking. I don't know what's going on right now.
No, I was fixing my Facebook. So.
Oh my God.
Hi, Kim.
That's hilarious. All right.
No, but
let's go ahead, Saskia.
Sorry.
That's okay.
No.
This is what Brenton signed down for.
I know. Go, I'm good.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, let's move on to this here before we check out another dash session. By the way, those dash sessions are just awesome.
Oh, they're awesome.
They're
like
awesome.
I said, I know what some people are doing tomorrow.
I want to talk about the mistakes that a lot of goalkeeper coaches make when they're trying to create scenarios with only the goalkeepers that they have available to them. And Brenton, if there's any, you know, through trial and error that you've seen that you go, you know what, this doesn't work, or you know what, this does work, you know, if there's like a little bit of a blueprint or a template that you can give some of these young coaches, you know, that'd be fantastic. So.
Oh, I've seen it because I've done it. You know, I still do it, and you have to go back and say, "Ooh, that wasn't good enough. I didn't like that." And you know, I mentioned the voodoo doll with my keepers. Sometimes I can feel it, you know, after a session, because you know there has to be tweaks and adjustments. You know, I think we talked about one. I think the distances are huge. You know, sometimes based on what you want, you know, if we're looking at 1v1 scenarios and you're looking at just your goalkeepers are going to goal, well, we may need to reduce the distance, because they're not world sprinters all the time. And, you know, if they're spending more time during the session running than actually just serving or performing goalkeeping, you know, that's a problem. They're going to wear down, and you're not going to get what you want effectively from the session. You know, I've said it before. I typically, or in the past, I wanted to move on way too quick. So there were 4 different phases I had down. And even if I was on phase 2, you know, I wanted to go on to phase 3, even if we hadn't executed what we needed from phase 2. So I think there has to be patience in there. I think from the service side, you have to relate the distribution still to the game. And Saskia talked about it, I talked about it earlier, you know, depending on the service, even if they're crossing from the flanks, that might be a clip ball into your 4 or 5 who've gone wide. Mm-hmm. It might be to your outside backs that have come in early. And it's something I still need to do a better job of, but can we relate the service to the game to force them to be more accurate? So those are a few things off the top of my head, but yeah, I'd say distances are huge in relation to the game. Your distribution, what you want to get out of it, and then just making sure that your goalkeepers can perform. You know, if we keep playing the ball in behind and you have 3 goalkeepers and one has done 10 40-yard sprints, you know, you're going to ruin your session and the speed of play and everything that goes with it.
I mean, it makes me think of my first ID camp that I had to do last spring. Like I said, I'm new to this. And I had my session all set and I was all excited about it and stuff. And I'm like, all right, it's an ID camp. These kids know how to play. And part of it had services in it. And oh my God, it was just a nightmare. Like I was having a mini panic attack myself, because I have all these coaches out here from like Stanford and everything like that looking at me like, who's the new kid on the block? Yeah, you won the World Cup. You can't run a 5-minute session. And I'm just like having a panic attack. I had to pull everybody in and tweak the entire session. I had to scrap it. I'd be like, obviously, like I thought too much of what these kids could do. But after that, I brought them in and I was pretty pissed. I was just like, you guys are here playing in front of the best college coaches on the West Coast. On the West Coast. and you can't strike a ball. You can't strike a ball. You got no pressure on you. I'm just having you standing out there and you can't strike a ball. That's a problem for me. That's a huge problem for me. And they're all looking at me because now I'm the coach at UCLA. And I'm like, I got a big problem with all of you right now. But and so that has to be integrated into these sessions. And I got ahead of myself assuming, that these kids could do this at a certain level. Shame on you, coaches, from wherever they came from. But you have to be able to kind of dial it back, tweak your sessions. But those things are important. And like, I don't consider those like field player situations. I consider that, hey, it's just your distribution. So like, I don't care if you're outside on the flank, just look at it like you're taking a goal kick, or you're trying to hit your 9 on a long ball or something, you know what I mean? But if you can't strike it, then you have some other work to do.
Yeah. And I think patience is critical. I think we all want to step in at times way too early when the distribution goes wrong. And as hard as it is, sometimes you just need to let the session go into chaos and let them fight through it. And it might be hard for those 20 minutes, but they've got to learn to battle through that poor distribution at times. And you've got to let it go on so they can fight through it a little bit.
Well, Brenton, I want to bring something up though, just to, an argument here that, because I know there's obviously a lot of parents listening and they go, hey, that's great, but I paid for goalkeeper training and my kids had 7 balls go off target and they're not getting quote unquote
You
work.
have parents that say that?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, you won a World Cup, they're intimidated by you. Me, they just get this little
parents drop their kids off and leave.
They just get these little kids, they see this little guy and they go, listen, man, look, we have a specific,
I got you.
No, but, Brenton, I mean, I think that you've brought up a big issue, in which case as a goalkeeper coach, it's not just necessarily about what you want out of a session and what is best for your goalkeepers, but it's about, a lot of times it's about explaining or, getting everybody on the same page so they understand the why of why you're doing something, so they're comfortable with the direction that you're taking the session. Because someone might walk by, a DOC might see a messy session and go, that guy doesn't know what he's doing.
Well, Omar says that, and we'll give a shout out to him all the time. He says he's used to get caught up a lot. And like you said, that perfect session, Brenton, like you're just like, you see it in your head on how you want this to go, and you don't want there to be chaos. You want to go from 1, 2 to 3 and everything. And you have to have patience. You're right. You have to step back and have patience and realize that the chaos is okay sometimes.
Yeah. Brenton, one thing I want to ask you though, is that, obviously, you worked at the college level before you got to the pro level. I think, and we can speak about this in just a general way. One of the biggest issues is that a lot of times is you'll get shot stoppers coming into the Division I level, like you two are working at, but you don't get goalkeepers coming into that level because this hasn't been worked on at the youth level, and especially the service thing, and I think it comes back to the thing is like quality of service. You get frustrated. Well, so-and-so's not getting the right service, so I have to step in and do the service so that they get it. But then they just start learning how to deal with your service, with you, Brenton, striking the ball, as opposed to Rachel Daly striking the ball,
No, for sure. And I think another key element, can we set them up for success in the service, at least at the beginning? So, putting a player who's not left-footed on the left side for angled shot stopping, that might not be the best idea at the start. And that requires a little bit of awareness. I mean, putting me there is an adventure at times. But can you set things up to where it favors them in the distribution? And then once they get more comfortable, then we can start to layer in a few different aspects and put them in different places. But I think that piece of awareness is critical too, and recognizing where to put them. Or it might be, hey, you want them to work on their left foot this week, so I'm going to have them strike balls there, and we'll find a way to manipulate the exercise, but they need to get comfortable striking with their left foot from that area because it's going to tie into the distribution.
I also think we have to stop raising up prima donna goalkeepers that sit there and be like, well, this ball's supposed to be served into the top of the 6 or slotted here, and it's not. So I'll go for the next one. No, it happens in a game. Figure it out. It's not perfect. Like if that, we just all buy jugs machines and have everything just be perfect, So I think that our goalkeepers in goal have to deal with bad scenarios as well.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I want to bring up this clip. Speaking of perfect service, though, perfect scenarios, I want to bring up this next clip right here. So, Brenton, why don't you break this down for us first?
Yeah, again, we're talking about 1v1s, and these first two kind of cover a lot of 1v1s because that was a big thing for us this year, protecting the goal zone. That's where a lot of the majority of goals were. So it's something we really wanted to focus on, and I believe this was from preseason. So that was a big priority. So, the goalkeeper makes the initial save, and then they can work left to right to handle the 1v1 situation. But we wanted them moving in under control. So it's still kind of that introductory phase. And then we go into this phase, the second phase, and then it's a bit more unpredictable because now I can turn and go to goal. So it's like that 9 who's received and turn, or I can play to the sides, or we have the striker touch around the mannequins. So now we've added a few unpredictable elements to where now they have to make a decision. Do I stay? Can I get there with my hands? Is it a blocking scenario? So now we've tied in more scenarios rather than can I get there under control and block? Now it might be a free ball, might be a point blank save, or it might be, can I get my hands there? So we've tied in a few different scenarios leading from that first exercise.
I like it. Look
Yeah.
at those calves.
And then
by the way, I was going to say,
one.
Look at those calves. Oh my gosh.
Oh my
I'm
gosh,
just really
yeah,
pale,
right.
so that's the only thing that stands out.
I'm like, they're huge.
So this is the third progression
this
right
is
here?
an interesting one. Yeah, this is an interesting one where we talk about context. So it's during preseason or one of our 3 preseasons this year. I can't remember which one. But the distance is probably actually too big here. But the reason for that, we wanted the goalkeepers to be able to get kicking in on the day or distribution and clip balls. So made it a little bit bigger to where, the goalkeeper receives, they're under a little bit of pressure. Now they have to clip it in. And then the goalkeeper receiving can go to goal, they can strike, or they can play myself, who can then go to any goal. Now, where you have to be careful with an exercise like this, I'm free. I could easily stand in front of the goalkeeper and go to goal, but I would be offside. So we're kind of getting away from that game-based scenario a little bit. So that's where you have to be careful and just recognize what you want to get from it. So usually once I received, I was going to one of the small goals. There were a few times I cheated and went to the bigger goals, but that's something you have to be aware of because, if you're going to the big goal, you're standing offside. So I think those are things as a coach, you have to be able to get what you want, but you also have to be aware of the context you're in and what you want. Because if you just walk by that, you'd say, ooh, distances are probably too big. But we also wanted to get distribution in on that day. So it made it a little bit bigger.
Yeah, so you're kind of you're basically, for lack of a better term, like you're doing like a compound session where like you can incorporate a bunch of different demands that you want to get out of the session, into one activity.
No, for sure. But when you go through that first exercise is more technical based because the tactical decision's pretty much been made. I know I'm going to make probably a point blank or blocking save, in this area. All right. And then we go into decision making where there's 3 or 4 different tactical decisions they have to make. So it's more game based. And then we're finally into a big goal and a couple different scenarios to finish before they go in with the team.
Yeah. By the way, one thing I absolutely love about, first off, obviously we're watching, seasoned pros, or the highest of levels, but just the shape, the starting shape is so good on these goalkeepers, the hand position, how disciplined they are with their micro movements. So I want a lot of young goalkeeper coaches who go back and rewind that to go and watch so that your kids can see how simple they make the movements right there and how clean it is. Cause it's just so important and efficient, and Saskia can attest to this cause she's played at the highest level, how less is more,
No, for sure. And they're all 3, they came in that way. So I was fortunate that we inherited 3 very good goalkeepers who are good at that and doesn't necessarily have anything to do with me. That's them. So.
Yeah. Brenton, I have a question for you. How many numbers do you need to create realistic scenarios? We just saw something where we're doing 3 different goalkeepers. I think one of the biggest fallacies that a lot of the young goalkeeper coaches have out there is that they need 17 guys in order to make something seem like a game realistic scenario. But in reality, it's about what's the situation that the goalkeeper is going to be actually in and how many numbers are going to be in that situation after it develops, right?
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I think it depends what you want to work on, what you want to get out of it. I mean, even with the server and a goalkeeper, we can make it game-based and tie it in. You know, an example would be, it could be as simple as the server starts 20 yards out, the goalkeeper's on the edge of the 6, you know, on a go call or on the touch of the server, the goalkeeper has to drop in and now get to their ball line. You know, that's realistic. And our crew talks about this all the time, that there's a lot of goalkeeper training from front to back, but in reality, most of your movements in the game, you're actually recovering to get into your ball line because you're supporting your back line. You have to drop in and then get into position. So, you know, that's one example. You start at the top of the 6. If it's somebody who's really advanced, you could even start further. And now they have to drop into position, get on their ball line, and now deal with a shot. So that's a game-based scenario, and it's just a server and a goalkeeper.
I think coaches out there also have to realize something a lot of coaches fall into. It doesn't all have to be fitness. Okay, so you can have 3 players. Nobody said that it's got to go, which is why people think they need 17 players because they're doing shooting drills and everything's going and going and going. It doesn't have to be that way. Like, not everything has to be fitness. It can be effective. You do one scenario, deal with it, and then recover and start again. It doesn't have, and I think a lot of coaches fall into that, where training the keeper means I need like 10 people shooting, and it's the next shot and the next shot and the next shot and the next shot. And that's not training a keeper. That's your shot stopper. And that's, you know, work on the scenarios that are game-like, slow it down and get through it.
Yeah,
no, for sure. And sometimes the intent's more important than the repetition. So Michael, you talked about having a walkthrough earlier. That's okay.
Yeah.
You know, as long as we get what we need from it, you know, based on the day and where you're at, youth level or professional. I mean, as long as you get the intent and what you need from that day, you don't necessarily need a million repetitions. But
yeah, and Ben, I love what you're saying right there, Brenton, because one of the things that I've been doing lately with a lot of my, you know, young goalkeepers is explaining to them that look at this as an active lecture as opposed to goalkeeper training. Right? Because when we kind of eliminate that, you know, that terminology or that point of view that we're training, you know, training makes you think of some dude, you know, squatting and bench pressing and running sprints and doing box jumps and all that sort of stuff, you know. If you look at it as an active lecture, you're looking like you're being involved athletically, but at the same time being stimulated intellectually, so that you're understanding why we're doing something and painting pictures and learning from these scenarios that we're doing. And you're actually activating yourself in these scenarios rather than just sitting there and listening to me talk about it. You're actually engaging yourself in it. And I've seen personally myself, a lot of young goalkeepers start getting more out of their sessions that way when they start thinking that way.
Yeah. Well, you also have to look at it, like, I don't mean to interrupt, but you also have to look at it in the sense of, you get into those coaches situations where you have, you know, goalkeeper coaches out there that are listening that are more worried about, am I sending my kid, my private home that wanted to throw up? And so the parents think that they got something out of it. And they're like, how you feeling, little Johnny? Here's Johnny again. How you feeling, little Johnny? I'm so tired. That was so hard. That was so hard, you know, because the coach just went because that's more important than the context of what you're teaching them and the quality of what you're teaching them. I'd rather have little Johnny go home and be like, yeah, it was hard, you know, at times, but I really learned a lot. And I learned, you know, how to deal with this scenario and situation. Like, not all pressure training.
But that goes back to coaching education, and it's not even just the parents, but it's also, you know, coaching your club, teaching your club, you know, what the demands are of your goalkeeper and what you should get out of it. You know, I had years ago.
Your field player coaches. I mean, I know you go through this. Probably with the dash, will set up like power and finesse. And everything. Let's end practice with power and finesse. Power and finesse. And you're just like, seriously, like.
Be fair, we're not too bad, but sometimes.
Amanda's gonna kill me in a minute. I'm gonna get a text.
No.
At least once a week here.
But I had DOCs have come up to me in the past, and they've come up to me and they're like, hey, make sure the goalkeepers work today. Make sure they. Yep. Saskia, you know what I'm talking about? Make sure they work today. Like, what do they usually do?
He needs to train hard.
Yeah.
She needs to train hard. I'm like, what do you think we're doing over here?
They need to be working because the field players are
playing
working.
patty
So I need to
cake.
make sure that they're working.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the field players are working. So I need to make sure that they're working, you know, and what you're doing right there, that doesn't look like they're working, you know. And I think you brought up a really good point, Brenton, in regards to the fact is like, so then you create these scenarios because you have these big numbers and now you're so focused on your expectations are completely unrealistic because they just went in the cage. Then they came out and became a field player. Well, that's not realistic to the game because they're not playing the 9 and playing in goal at the same time, right?
No, for sure. And that's where I think you have to set the environment to relate both. And it's honestly something I need to do a better job of rather than just, you know, putting them out there and saying, hey, finish. And when they don't, giving the old frustrated reaction. But it's definitely something I can still perfect and integrate more into our sessions for sure.
I absolutely love having, like, with the 4 at UCLA, I love not having to shoot the ball every day. I'm like saving my leg finally. Like I don't think I've had my cleats on for like a week.
But you two are lucky. You guys are at a high level. You can ask for 3 field players to come over.
Yeah.
To do some finishing work, you know, or to work on, you know, a 1v1 breakaway type scenario, or, you know, crossing, you know, those types of activities or whatever, you know, a lot of
times I use my keepers. A lot of times I just use the 4 keepers, to be honest with you, or like every once in a while somebody's like in rehab or something can come over and stuff. But usually I'm fine with having 4 keepers and integrating it that way.
Yeah. By the way, somebody commented on that, Saskia, months ago, and they went off on you about this, Brenton. I don't know if you saw this, but they basically said they're like, Saskia Weber commented that, you know, she uses injured field players, you know, for service in her goalkeeper training sessions. That is an insult. That is an insult and a disrespect to the field players who are rehabbing themselves and trying to
part of their rehab.
Regain match fitness.
Whoever's listening, it's part of their rehab, and they get sent over to work on striking the ball when they've been cleared to finally strike the ball, but they're not allowed to be in with the team yet. And I'm like pretty sure I have like a staff of about 20 doctors and physios and everything. It's not my decision. It's like, hey, Saskia, we can send you some of, you know, the rehab players today if you're doing this kind of striking the ball. If you need extra players.
I'll have to send you this comment. Then they went off on American soccer and they said, and this is what the issue is with you, with all of you in the States, is that you don't, and then just the person just started going, it's like, when I'm working with my 7th division team here in blah, 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 or whatever. And I was like, okay.
I'm pretty sure that I'm not the only person that makes that decision, just so you guys know. It's not like, hey, send me the guys that just got out of their ACL surgery. I'm going to work them. Like, what?
Well, Brenton, I know you need to get out to the fields in a couple minutes because you guys have thunderstorms coming in, so you guys have to start a little bit earlier.
It's Houston.
But battle of the turf.
Oh my God, you guys are fighting for that turf spot, right?
For sure. The hot commodity.
I want to ask you. You were talking about the you're using a weakness as a strength as opposed to looking at it as a weakness. And what I meant by that is when you were talking about, you're like, so-and-so can't strike with their left. Well, actually that's great because that keeper can't guess now. That keeper is going to have to deal with God knows what type of service this player is going to serve you. Talk a little bit more about that and some other examples of ways that you can, you know, instead of getting frustrated that so-and-so can't do something, but actually use that to your advantage.
No, for sure. I think it goes back to creating the scenario you want. So if you're working on, you know, cutbacks and somebody running onto it, well, now if somebody's running onto it with their left foot or striking with their left foot, now it's a bit more unpredictable if they struggle with that foot. So now it ties in a couple different reactions. And even kind of in the introduction phase, if you're covering a smaller space and they're just turning and you have somebody striking with their left foot and they're not completely accurate with that yet, well, now they have to make that decision and react because you don't necessarily know where it's going. So now that person gets to work on their left foot, but now we're tying in some reactions because you literally have no idea where it's going to go. And if you wanted to even get more creative with that, you could even pull out, you know, for the younger ages, maybe even the older ages, but like the quick goal volleyballs. Okay, so now they're getting more comfortable striking a lighter ball, but you don't know where it's going. So now we've tied in reactions. Or if they're doing 1v1s, it's not quite as painful if they're going into their blocking shape. So now that person's working on striking with their left foot. The goalkeeper is getting experience working with 1v1s, but it's a lighter ball. So that just adds a different element to it. You know, and in crosses, it might be if you want somebody to strike longer balls with their left foot, well, now I just need to alter the exercise a little bit. So I know they might shank, you know, a couple with their left foot. So now we tie in a second cross from a different angle. So that way, at least if that one gets shanked, now the goalkeeper has to change their position and work for a different cross. You know, or you could even tie in a different scenario to where, okay, we're working on diving, collapse diving, shot stopping, and the goalkeeper gives up a rebound. Well, now if they give up a rebound, somebody's striking it with their left foot, you know, to imitate. Now we have to react to that rebound. So I think, you know, there's different ways to go about it, but it's just tying it into the scenario you want and having awareness of your players and what they need to work on, especially in the areas of service.
I absolutely love that. You know, I mean, you just blew my head in regards to how I'm going to approach when I've got a kid that's struggling in one facet, you know, whether that's, you know, like, you know, air service, you know, left foot, you know, any sort of thing of that. How can I manipulate this player? I mean, dude, I feel like everyone needs to hear that clip. Really, honestly, I think that's so beneficial. Well, man, I know you got to get out to the field right now. So first off, thanks for being a fan. Honestly, it means a heck of a lot to all of us, you know, and honestly,
hope it wasn't too painful.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. Like I said, I enjoy you guys. You have personality, and it's fun to hear you guys and talk with you guys. And I really appreciate what you're doing for goalkeeping and for the game.
Well, I mean, you know, we'll have to have you back, you know, when Omar's back, so that you can get the full experience with Omar eating food and turning off his camera, and, you know, being late, being 5 minutes late, you know, and or his Wi-Fi going out, you know, all those fun types of things. If anybody else wants to reach out to you, Brenton, obviously you're very accessible on social media, which is, I think a lot of, you know, young goalkeeper coaches really appreciate when people at your level, you know, are willing to be open and discuss things with them. Where's the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm terrible about posting stuff, but I will respond to just about any message. So, I mean, Twitter and Instagram, and then it's just Saylor at houston-soccer.com. I mean, I'm a pretty open book if you want to reach out to me.
No, awesome. And remember, guys, you can reach out to Saskia. What?
You have a new one? Yes, send me all your injured players.com. I need them for training.
So if this coach of the seventh division in Luxembourg is looking to send some injured players,
I'll rehab them for you.
Oh my gosh, guys. Remember, you can reach Saskia Weber at Saskia_Weber on all social media platforms. Contact at Inside the 18. That's the number 18media.com. If you have a guest suggestion or a topic suggestion. Brenton, shout out to you for these topic suggestions. These were been absolutely phenomenal.
Thanks for the awesome clips.
Yeah, I mean, just, you know, that's a great thing is like when we get people coming on and they've already got their sessions lined up, and then, like, I mean, you know, Saskia's like, well, I don't have a lot of work to do. I can just sit here and just watch. Like, I don't have anything to add to this.
I don't have to write my session for tomorrow.
At Goalkeeper Podcast on all social media platforms, guys. That's all the time on Inside the 18, and we are out. Later.